There we go.
Hey, this is Braden with Overland Outfitters, and today I just want to do a really quick video on how to do two really common trail fixes. And that would be the inner tie rod and the CV. These are the two most common things to break when you're out wheeling. And so we just wanted to do a really quick hit on how to fix them while you're on the trail. I know we're on a lift, so everything's kind of right here and convenient for me, but on the trail it's the same exact process, it's just a little more awkward. So the tie rod will generally break if you're like turning in a weird angle and putting a lot of pressure on a tie rod, either going in or out. Typically in, you'll either bend it or just snap it straight up. So you want to avoid those kind of situations. And then the CV, same kind of thing. When you're going up and you start, like you kind of get stuck and then you start bouncing. As soon as you start bouncing, the wheel will bind up and it'll just snap that CV. Well, A, we want to try and prevent those situations so they don't break things in the first place. But stuff happens, so when it breaks, we want to know how to fix it. So here we go, let's get into it. So the first step when you're changing your CV is to remove the wheel, obviously. So we've already done that. Second step is to drop your screwdriver. Third step is to take this, this just little dust cap off. So we're just going to tap that right off with the screwdriver. So once you have that dust cap off, we have the end of the CV right here with a little locking collar and a cotter pin. And then there's a 35mm nut behind there. So if you've watched our Toyota toolkit video of the essential tools you should have in your toolkit in your Toyota if you're going off-road, the 35mm axle nut socket is one of the main things you should have, so we're going to be using that right now. If you're on the trail, you might not have an impact, so you can either get a friend to step on the brake so that this doesn't turn, or you can use like a pry bar or something between the lugs if you're by yourself. But I have an impact, so I'm going to use an impact. Next step is there's two bolts below holding the lower ball joint bracket on. Here and here, they're a 19mm, so we're just gonna zip those out. So if you have a skid plate that blocks your access to the CV and the diff, you're gonna have to take that off. So we just have the stock one on, so we're just gonna remove that. Okay, so next up, we're going to pull the CV out of the hub. So you can usually get enough space just by doing this. Be careful not to pull the CV too far out, otherwise you'll pull the star out of the cup on the inside. There we go. So you just want to watch your brake line. It gets a little tight, but you can get it out this way. If it's too hard, you can just pull the sway bar link out or even remove the whole caliper, but it is possible to get around. There is a seal on the back here. You also want to be careful not to hit that too hard. But yeah, we popped her out without too much trouble. So if you break a CV and you don't have a spare with you, like I said before, you'll just snip this clamp off, pull the boot, and you'll just pull this whole assembly out of the inner and leave the inner in the diff, just to protect it from getting dirt inside. And that will just spin there, it won't harm anything. You'll just put this back together. No CV, no big deal. But if you do have a spare, then you're gonna pry this out, and that's what we're gonna do. So this is a stock CV from another truck, but basically I just wanted to talk about where the CV might break. So this is the inner where it goes into the diff, the outer where it goes into the hub, and then the axle could break or shear right in half right here somewhere. So typically the most common spot for a CV to break is on this inner CV joint. and what happens is this will either pop out of the cup or the star will break or something in there will break and this joint will no longer work. So if that happens, you don't remove this stub from the diff, because then you'll just have an open access hole right into the diff and you'll be out wheeling and you'll get dirt in there and it's just not a good scene. So you just pull this clamp off and you just pull the whole axle straight out of here. There's gonna be a lot of grease, it's gonna be super messy, but you just leave this stub in your diff if this is what broke. If the outer broke, same deal, just pop it out just like we did and just pull this right out, same kind of thing, and just always leave this stub in. And then the last thing that can break is your axle, but always the same thing, just leave this in. If you have a spare CV, then you will pop this out and you'll put your new CV in. So when you're prying your CV out, you want to be prying against this lip or even against these little cut notches and not against this, this kind of seal here, as this will bend really badly. You can just pry up here and no big deal. And what you're doing when you're prying is you're fighting against this little clip. It's just a little C-clip. It just pops out, but that's just what's holding your inner in. So now we're gonna put it back together. If you're on the trail and you don't have a spare, then all you're gonna do is bolt this back up. You're gonna ignore all this. But because we do have a CV here, we're gonna pop it back in and put it back together properly.
Oh yeah.
She's in. So when you're putting this back together, whether you have a torque wrench out on the trail or not, when you fix it properly, when you get back home, the torque specs for this, I'm gonna have to go look at the torque specs really quick. I think it's 173. This goes to 173 foot-pounds, and these bottom two bolts, they go to 118 foot-pounds. The next common trail fix that you're gonna have to do is this inner tie rod will break, or the outer. The outer is not as common as the inner is though, but we're gonna just replace both just to show you how to do it. So first step is to undo this outer tie rod joint. And remember that there's proper tools to do this with in a shop, but most people are gonna have them when they're out on the trail. So we're gonna use the trail tools, trail styles. But yeah, let's start with this. So this cotter pin is in here and it's pretty seized up. So we're just gonna snip it off and take this nut right off. So this one here is a 19 mil, though if it's been changed, it's usually a different size. Another thing you can do is you can put this little castle nut back on so you're not hitting the threads directly, and you can just hit straight from the top. Zing! So now if you're just changing the outer, you're basically done. You're just gonna take this back, you're gonna measure your threads, or the distance between here and you want to just some sort of frame of reference, measure that, and then you're going to take the outer off and then put it back on to where it was before. But we're going to replace the inner as well, so we're just going to keep on rolling. Okay, so now there's a clip in the back here that holds this boot on. So to get the inner out, we're going to get rid of that clip. Just going to slide this guy off. There we go. That's your inner. So this one's got some play. So you just gotta tap these bent over parts back so that you have access. Okay, so when you're taking this off, there is a special tool you can use to take it off, but on the trail, typically you're not gonna have it. So a great way to get it off is a pipe wrench, or sometimes you can squeeze a crescent wrench in there. So the pipe wrench isn't really a mechanics tool, but it's great for a lot of different jobs, especially out on the trail. So in this case, like, it's just gonna take this tie rod right off, no dramas, just like that. A little crack, and then she just comes right off. So when you wanna put your new spare back in, there's this washer that we had bent back before. Notice that it has two little kind of thingamajiggers on it. Those line up with these notches, so you're gonna make sure that they point towards the notches. See how annoying this is with the crisp knife? now that you've got your inner installed, those little tabs folded over, and you slide your boot up, then you just take your little clampies and you clamp this back on. Clamping the inner on properly is really annoying, but if you have the right clamp, then clamp it up. If you don't have the right clamp, just throw a zip tie or something on it for the time being, and then clamp it up when you get a second at home. But we're gonna clamp it up now. So next you're gonna take your outer tie rod, just put it on there, and you're gonna put it back to the measurement that you got before. You obviously wanna get an alignment done later on, but because you're out on the trail, ain't nobody got time for that. So you're just gonna throw this back in, zip that back up, and put a cotter pin back in there. And that's it, you're done. So that's it. 2 really common trail fixes, and they're not that hard to do. I know it's gonna be a little more awkward when you're out in the rain and the mud and you're sitting on your butt and it's just gonna be a pain, but it's the way it is when you're out in the road. So we just wanted to give you the pointers so you're prepared when you go out there, because half of being prepared is just knowing what to do. So hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully you never break anything, but if you do, make sure you watch our toolkit videos.
Get watching them videos on the YouTube.
Exactly.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. That's it. Exactly. All I know is what's up. So yeah, just get subscribed. Make sure that you're watching. So when we have a new video coming out, maybe how to change.
Hey!
Hey!
Hey! Get back to work!
Right on set!
Get back to work!
Yeah, so we're gonna be doing a few more trail fix kind of videos, more stuff like that. So subscribe and make sure you're staying up to date so that you're prepared when you go on the trail. Let's go!